GB Gaming.
Dynasty Warriors. One of possibly 3 franchises that I have been loyal to from the very beginning alongside FIFA and Grand Theft Auto. Whenever you bring up Dynasty Warriors to any other gamer that has heard of this series, they refer to them as a button mashing hack and slash beat 'em up, or in short, those 1 versus 1000 games that repeat the same boring repetitive gameplay structure that has been around since the beginning. You'd think that, since all of these games are pretty much that genre in all its glory. Well, save for one. I first experienced Dynasty Warriors way back in the late 1990s with the original game on the PlayStation, and I would have been safe in assuming that not a lot of people new to the franchise would have even known that the first game was a one-on-one fighting game, similar to that of Soul Blade in the Caliber series, or the Toshinden franchise. This was the first fighting game I ever played that had the fighters using weapons instead of the traditional punching and kicking I would be so used to seeing. I only ever played Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat on the Sega Mega Drive and Tekken 3 on the PlayStation before I discovered this game, and back then I absolutely loved it. Nowadays, well, some of it is a bit dated to say the least, but that's the short version, so let's take a closer look at the original Dynasty Warriors for the PlayStation. Released in Japan in 1997, known as Sango Kumuso, and then as Dynasty Warriors in North America and Europe later that year, this game was developed by Omega Force and published by Koei, and included a fairly complex fighting system that was almost similar to the aforementioned Soul Calibur games, in that it goes beyond simple button mashing, spamming moves to hopefully beat your opponent, and instead opts for well-timed weapon attacks and parries in order to get the better of said opponent. There are 10 characters to choose from initially, with another 6 hidden characters that can be unlocked the more you play. The game takes place in the Three Kingdoms era of ancient China, around the year 180 to 280 AD, and almost every character is representative of real life figures from this era. Story-wise, it mostly follows that of the novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, written by Luo Guanzhong, which is an embellished and romanticised version of these real events and figures that took place here. While there is not much of an actual plot device in place for this game, the characters and locations are referenced in this novel, such as Guan Yu, Xiaoyun and Lu Bu, as well as places like Changban, Wuzhong Plains and Hulao Gate. Going back to the mechanics of this game, I want to delve slightly deeper into how the game is constructed, and that each character model in this game used over 600 shaded and textured polygons to make them look as realistic as possible, and to be honest, they were pretty up to snuff with the technology used on the PlayStation platform, especially when you take a look at other games that were released in the same year, such as Tekken 3, Oddworld's Abe's Odyssey, and especially Final Fantasy VII, a technical masterpiece at the time of its release. So it was comfortable to say that Dynasty Warriors was pretty nice to look at. Maybe not so much now, but back then this was a pretty impressive innovation for games at this point. Not only that, but this game used full motion capture technology and ran at 60 frames per second. And it looks pretty good. Dynasty Warriors also comes packed with your typical fighting game play modes such as story, practice, time trial, endurance, team battle, and a refreshing tournament mode, which I wish I could have experienced fully back then, but alas, I didn't have 7 other friends to play this game with, and I only had the 1 controller. But my favourite game mode has to be endurance. I love survival-esque modes in my fighting games, and this was one of the games that introduced me to this mode. All in all, this was a fantastic game, and I think it still holds up nowadays, especially with the advanced fighting mechanics that weren't mash and pray you win and were actually intricate but really fair, in that if you fucked up, it was your fault and not the opponent. I don't recall ever feeling cheated in this game as a child, and I felt like each and every victory was mine and every loss was my own fuck up, and I learned from this the more I played. If you are a fan of fighting games and you missed this one growing up, I highly suggest you give it a go. It is absolutely available everywhere, and it is an easy and cheap pickup nowadays. Now let's talk briefly about the titles of these games and why they ended up being so different after Dynasty Warriors 2 onwards. As I said at the start of the video, this was known as Sango Kumuso in Japan and was simply entitled Dynasty Warriors over in Western regions. When the next installment arrived, it was entitled Shin Sango Kumuso, which apparently translates to True Dynasty Warriors, I think, or something along those lines, which makes it the first of the crowd combat style and naturally the first of this true series, but was simply renamed Dynasty Warriors 2 in the West. This is why when we see a new Dynasty Warriors installment released, it gets a bit confusing when you see the original Japanese version. For example, Dynasty Warriors 9 is due to be released in February of 2018, and in Japan this game is called Shin Sangoku Musou 8, making it the 8th in the True series of the East, but the 9th in the Dynasty Warriors series in the West. I hope what I said there made sense, because I struggled to piece this together as I couldn't find a proper translation while I was writing up this review. But nonetheless, the original Dynasty Warriors is a great fighting game that is still very playable to this day and highly worth your money if you're curious and interested in the genre. If not, well, you wouldn't have wasted that much money because it is very, very affordable. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and you want to see more, then just hit the subscribe button and give the video a like if you want. No pressure here, I do these videos for my own enjoyment. And with that said, thanks very much for watching. This has been Gamerboy talking here on GB Gaming, where video games come first. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Have a good one.